No, I am excited to see who makes our top 8 cut. How about yourself?
It's going to be a really tight one. We've got some really great players. We've got some really great decks. And yeah, I also can't wait to see who can make it.
I know we're not supposed to play favorites, but do you have somebody in mind?
Uh,
Or a deck?
we've seen Michael was Yazowski on camera a couple times, and I think the kid has been playing really, really well. The deck looks really solid, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him make top 8 here.
Sure. On the left, Michael with 4-color Omnath. I've covered him a couple times this weekend, and his build's a little different than normal. He plays mostly a blue-white deck, splashing the other cards. So it's a lot of prismatic endings, a lot of counterspells, a lot of force of negations. Matt
Yeah,
Shu with Preordain.
yeah. So Michael really, taking a little bit more of a Greg Orange approach of the deck. Just really playing this blue-white style control deck, splashing for this Omnath, splashing for this Ren and 6, which I really like. I think that if you know what you like, playing these counter spells, just like having a bunch of force negation solitudes in your deck, then you might as well, show up prepared.
I think it was us yesterday that saw a really long game with 4-color Omnath where a Ren and 6 emblem let Preordains out of the graveyard turn every single draw into something live.
Yeah, that was super wild. Just really, in I would say live action, seeing the changes that Preordain has to some of these decks in modern. It might seem like just a pretty harmless cantrip, but when you can turn all of your dead lands late game into looking for more action, it adds up very quick.
Yeah, and this is the kind of matchup where that could theoretically happen again. It's a slow match versus slow match. It's a slugfest. But Matt's trying to speed things up with a turn 2 Delighted Halfling. Looks like Matt Shu's on the more traditional Omnath build.
Yeah, Matt's list, featuring these halflings, featuring, you know, a lot of planeswalkers actually. So his deck a little bit different than I would say the most typical list that you'd find, just playing these Ren and 6s, these Teferis, these 4 copies of the One Ring. He opted to instead play 3 copies of the One Ring in his main deck, and then 4 Karns. So essentially 7 rings.
Yeah, we covered Matt yesterday too, and I liked his build quite a bit. Delighted Halfling is good enough to hide under the Leyline Binding, says Michael.
Yeah, I mean, that really goes to show the power of Delighted Halfling, especially against Michael Yazowski's list, right? His list is featuring 4 copies of Counterspell. So as well as, some other main deck counter magic. So it's really important for him to deal with this halfling.
Absolutely. And yeah, had to, given the counterspell in his hand, which answered Teferi Time Raveler from Matt. Michael deploys a 4th land, passes back to Matt Shu. Matt Shu's 4th turn. He's got a Karn in hand. Will we see it?
He already, fought through this first counterspell, and he's got so many potent threats in his hand. You have to imagine here, if you're Matt, you can't sit around and just try to tax Michael's mana forever with these counterspells because your spells are more expensive. So you just sort of got to start playing something. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Karn here, and then follow it up the next turn with the Omnath and a fetch land, sort of being able to double spell the following turn.
Karn.
Yeah, I mean, what looks like he played it, it immediately resolved, and he's -2ing. Looking at the options for what he could be getting here, there is the liquid metal coating, a pretty easy one to go for, but he's only playing 3 the One Rings in his main deck for a reason. It's because these Karns are just essentially another copy of it. I would be surprised if, in any scenario that wasn't dire, as soon as we saw this Karn enter the battlefield, it just immediately fetch up a copy of the One Ring, regardless of how many copies Matsu has in his hand, because I think that is how powerful the One Ring is. And really, that is the reason that Matt is playing this build. You have these 4 Karns where some lists only have 4 copies of the One Ring. It's just extra copies.
Yeah, I think we had pegged Matt for identifying that the One Ring is probably one of the best reasons to be playing this deck and one of the best decks to utilize it. He's all in on the One Ring, but he's also all in on this Omnath. Omnath, Locus of Creation, turn 5. Now we're almost certainly going to see a land drop.
Yeah, I mean, Solitude really excellent here, shutting Matt off from using this Omnath effectively. Just spending 4 mana to gain 4 life and draw a card. Not really what you're hoping for if you're Matt. He was kind of hoping, it's either going to get counterspelled or I'll be able to, play my fetch land, crack it, get enough mana to deploy a One Ring as well this turn. So really important for Michael Yuzowski to have that Solitude there.
Absolutely. We're going to see trading of resources until this match is over. Solitude hits Karn, gains a little life for Michael.
Yeah, Michael's deck is just so pretty that it's hard to tell what is on the battlefield. I can identify this Leyline Binding, I can identify the Solitude, but if you told me, you win $1 million if you could name all 6 lands that Michael Yuzowski has in play, I would certainly lose $1 million.
Yeah, absolutely. The full art stuff these days is sometimes hard to parse out over camera. Matt Shue going to his 6th turn. He's going to start the One Ring.
Yeah, I mean, makes a lot of sense. The One Ring kind of facilitates the 4-color Omnath deck to do basically just about anything. Unfortunate that it doesn't really protect this Karn, except for, you could just take up. Actually, I think that's exactly what he should do, right? Take up the Karn on this One Ring, have it as a 4/4 possible blocker, but that does leave it, vulnerable to Michael having another Solitude, which he does happen to have.
One Ring sticks, and then it clicks. Matt is going to draw a card. Misty Rainforest is the follow-up. Tick up Karn. Probably not actually animating the ring.
I mean, at this point, right, it doesn't make sense at all to animate it, because then you can't even use the One Ring as a blocker. But if you're Matt and you're thinking that Michael does not have another copy of Solitude, there's certainly merit to animating this One Ring, because it's indestructible already. So all of the cards besides Solitude that would answer it will answer it regardless. But it's looking like he's just opting instead to Leyline Binding to sort of protect this Karn. He's valuing an extra card to be able to find off the Karn more than he's valuing having the Leyline Binding, which does make some sense. There is a Sundering Titan that he could fetch up, which would just be devastating. He's only two mana short of casting it, and I think it would just kill at least 4 of Michael's lands, probably 5.
Only in play for a brief moment, and then Boseiju was channeled from Michael's side.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit unfortunate, Matt just has to say goodbye to this Karn, but the thing is, Karn has already put in a lot of work this game. It found a free copy of the One Ring. Or I shouldn't say free, but, it found a copy of the One Ring and then also ate up some attacks. So you can't hate to see it.
Absolutely not. All right. Michael has temporarily answered all of Matt's threats, but Matt's got a grip. 5 cards. I saw lands and spells. Where do we go from here, Noah?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we're going to start off with another copy of the One Ring. The first one got answered, so naturally that's what we're looking to. It looks like he picked up another one just in case. Also has another Karn in hand. it's all right. The problem here, if you're Matt, is you have a lot of planeswalkers in your hand, right? But you don't have any removal. So this Solitude, yeah, it's not huge, but it does really profitably attack your planeswalkers, which doesn't give you the greatest opportunity to play them. This Teferi's fine. He could bounce Solitude, I guess, if he really wanted to, and then just say, hey, I'm gonna win this game just by out card advantaging you. I have the One Ring in play. I have another copy in my hand. I don't really care if you kill this one, and I want to make you, have to cast Solitude for no value. So I don't actually hate bouncing with the Teferi there. It seems fine.
Another Leyline Binding from Michael solves the second The One Ring from Matt Shu. Flavor fail. We've talked about some flavor fails with this card yesterday. How can you have multiple The One Rings?
That was just the individual One Ring,
Got it.
Yeah.
Matt Shu.
Yeah, I mean, here if you're Matt, it seems like he's been looking to play a One Ring every single turn for the past 3 turns, or 2 turns rather. So I don't know why he wouldn't start off this turn in a similar fashion. Oh, I guess opting to Karn first here. Huh. A little bit surprised to see this, I guess, just because the Solitude.
Is he trying to bait? No, there's no bait. There's Teferi on the battlefield. Oh, we're getting Sundering Titan.
Huh. Well, he must have picked up some sort of interaction for the Solitude to have. Yeah, it looks like there's a Lightning Bolt now in his hand to have caused him to decide not to deploy the One Ring. So I do really like that play. He says, "Look, I have Teferi in play. I don't care if Michael has any sort of counterspell in his hand. Like, I am going to resolve this Sundering Titan." And I think that's a great piece of tech in his deck too. Actually, like, these 4-color Omnath decks have such greedy mana bases that a Sundering Titan resolving is gonna kill, like I said before, at least 3 or 4 lands, and I'm pretty sure on Michael's board it kills 5. So
yeah, I agree. Omnath is the play for Michael. He's going to send in Solitude at one of the Planeswalkers, but that's not going to work because Lightning Bolt is a magic card.
Yeah, I mean, this Lightning Bolt actually excellent here at just doing a good job of protecting the Planeswalkers.
Post-combat for Michael. We got an Omnath. He got 1 trigger off of the fetch land that he deployed. But it looks like he's passing without going for the second. Back to Matt Shu. He's got Teferi Time Raveler, which can now bounce one of those ley lines if he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the Teferi was only at 2, so he has to take it up this turn anyways. But from his perspective, if you're Matt, you don't really mind that this Leyline Binding is on this One Ring. He's got another one in his hand. At this point, I think really what he's focused on is, all right, I'm gonna resolve my Sundering Titan. I'm gonna kill a bunch of lands. I already know that's gonna happen. How am I really gonna shut this game out so that Michael can't get back in? What I would look to is possibly an answer for this Omnath. Yeah, killing lands is important, but the Omnath is going to provide a lot of mana as well. I wouldn't say that he should prioritize, if you're Matt, I wouldn't say prioritize killing the Omnath this turn as opposed to, killing a bunch of lands. But, after you get this Sundering Titan in play, the first thing you need to do is kill this Omnath. And from that point, I really don't think, Michael Guzowski is going to have too much of a chance at winning any longer. The mana advantage that Matt is going to have after this resolves is massive.
Indeed. So Sundering Titan's entering the battlefield. It's going to eat 5 lands just like you predicted. That's going to leave Michael with just a fetch. Or, excuse me, a fetch, an island, and an Omnath. Chat pointed out a rules quirk. Karn, the great creator, can actually grab the One Ring or any other artifact out from under a Leyline Binding.
Wow, that's actually, yeah, that's a
Well,
little bit unfortunate for Michael. Like, Karn is just a total mirror breaker in that sense, then, because the biggest answer that you have to the One Ring if you're Michael is like, yeah, you could counterspell it, but Leyland Bond only costs 1 mana and answers it. But Matt, he's got 4 copies of Karn the Great Creator, and those will just pick up these One Rings straight from under, and that is going to be really tough to beat if you're Michael. Generally, you could use these counter spells to kind of protect yourself from these Karns, from these One Rings, but Matt has so many threats, as well as 4 copies of Delighted Halfling, that if you're Michael, you're going to have to find sort of a different way to try and interact profitably.
I agree. You can't 1-for-1 all day and hope to win. What is Michael going to do post sideboard? What do you think? It's got a wish board, so his sideboard strategy is completely different. But what's Michael going to do?
Yeah, I mean, Michael's list, while being a little bit different, does have a lot of those similar aspects in the main deck. So I don't know how much he's going to change his deck. I know in the past we saw him bring in this Valky, this Tibalt in these sort of matchups, just sort of as a way to go over the top. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. There is these copies of Veil of Summer, but for him, they don't necessarily do very much. Like if Matt had a card like Veil of Summer in this matchup, I could understand it. But for Michael, it doesn't do all that much. The Hall of Moonlight, not for this matchup. Aether Gust, probably pretty excellent here. I could see Supreme Verdict being okay on some board states, really not great on others. Probably won't see it coming in. The extra copy of Beseiju, good answer to Leyline Binding. We'll probably end up seeing that. Just is a pretty free card to bring in. I'm sure he could shave some land that he feels is less important, or if he has enough spells that aren't even good in this matchup. The combination of Beseiju plus Ren and 6, really, really, really potent combo in these sort of matchups, completely shutting your opponent down from getting any sort of Leyline Binding shenanigans together.
I'm going to quickly say thank you to chat for all the kind words. They've been praising our efforts for the last few minutes, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. Michael is going to play, I'm sure, for game 2. Matt? Do you think Matt winning game 1 puts him at a heavy favorite for the match?
Yeah, I mean, going in, playing this sort of pseudo mirror match where, the cards that are different in your deck are that you have 4 copies of Delighted Halfling and 4 copies of Karn the Great Creator, which shut off your opponent's the One Ring, and also with the Delighted Halfling, kind of shutting off these counter spells, being another must answer threat. I'd say that naturally Matt kind of has an edge in the matchup. And then looking at Michael's board, I really didn't see too many cards that are going to be super effective here. A lot of the cards that were in his sideboard are really for these combo decks, to the Chalice of the Voids to shut off Cascading, Hall of Moonlight to do something similar, so it's going to be tough for sure. I'm sure we'll see, these copies of Obsidian Charmaw. I feel like that is really his big sort of mirror breaker sort of card. But other than that, you really just don't see too many cards that are going to be too impactful in this matchup.
Sounds good. Looks like both on a Mulligan 6.
But even when it comes to Charmaw, which I would think would be one of the strongest cards in this matchup, Matt has more copies than Michael has. Michael only has those 2 copies in his sideboard, and Matt has a full 3. So not only does he have access to more copies of the One Ring with these 4 Karns, and access to, the Sundering Titan, which is just completely blows up in the mirror, he has more copies of, Michael's best card, which is Obsidian Charmaw. So it's looking like a real uphill battle here for Michael. But is starting off good for him already. You know, having turn 2 Ren and 6 on the play, very important. And also Matt not having a turn 1 delighted halfling, very important for him. So it's not impossible for the game to go well. I just think that the way that Matt's deck is configured should be a pretty heavy favorite in a matchup like this.
Turn 2 Leyline Binding on Ren and 6. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. You know, what if you're Matt here and the first 2 plays of the game are triumphs, you are kind of feeling a little bit of pressure, right? Not from anything, you know, in specific that Michael is doing, but from the fact that you haven't been progressing your board at all. So I think, you know, playing the Leyline Binding there for Matt was really just a concession to the fact that, hey, I am taking such a slow amount of time to do anything this game. I need to sort of answer, you know, what you're doing. So I don't hate it. You know, I wouldn't say that I love it, but, you know, let's say that Michael is planning on casting a Teferi like he ends up doing here. Matt is kind of forced to just cast the Leyline Binding in response anyways, and that gives Michael an opportunity to use Ren and 6. You know, what ended up happening here, not incredibly great for Matt anyhow, but I don't mind him playing the removal spell there.
Sure. Teferi on 1, Ren and 6 on 4. Matt Shue says, I like Ren and 6 as well. I'm going to finish off Teferi. Shocking in a stomping ground.
I don't necessarily understand this unless he has. Oh, I guess he could have Delighted Halfling actually. But if it's Lightning Bolt, I don't love leaving up the stomping ground. It doesn't seem too important for like him to even cast a Lightning Bolt on turn like this. But it looks like it's just gonna be
Halfling it is. All right. Back over to Michael. Michael's got a whole bunch of cards. Those lands directly in front of him are in his hand. He's just leaving them on the table like a bro because Matt knows that he has. Starts with one of these known fetch lands. I think Michael needs to be aware of the clock. He's got to win 2 games.
Is a really great point. These match, as we've seen, you know, in the past today, in the past yesterday, these matchups can just take a very long time. So it is so important to be mindful of how long is left on the clock. You know, trying to move as quickly as possible when you're cracking your fetch lands, when you're making your decisions on your turn, because at this point, you know, their record's really good. You know, 9-2-1, 9-1-2, but neither of them is really looking for a draw from this spot.
No, I don't think either of them want one. It's slightly better for Matt, but it's not a perfect cut either. Let's see what we've got, Matt. Pyridane, followed by Leyline Binding. We're going to try this again. We're going to hide the fancy Ren and 6 and tick up the basic Ren and 6. Back over to Michael.
A really big thing to note in this game is the fact that Matt doesn't have any fetch lands. So his Ren and 6 is just way less good than any copies of Michael's, because he can't really recur anything, not really getting anywhere with his Ren and 6s. And also, you know, the first 2 lands that he played this game were the cycling lands. So he doesn't even have a cycling land right now that he could get back. So the Ren and 6 not really doing much of anything for him, and Matt really just feeling the pressure of the value that Michael was getting from his Ren and 6 and feeling like he needed to Leyline Binding it again.
The name of the game is Mid-Range Card Advantage Slugfest. Teferi joins the party again. What's Teferi going to do? Tick up.
Yeah, I mean, I like this for Michael, you know, kind of deciding, yeah, I don't really need this Ren and 6. You know, the value that it's providing me, not too much. I've got a land, that I could play every turn. But, he just wants to keep this Teferi in play, maybe bounce some sort of threat that Matt plays on a future turn. So I like this from him.
Matt says, I like your Teferi, but Michael has the Dovin's veto. Sideboard All-Star. Let's see if Matt has a follow-up. We're going to fetch first. Michael, shields are down. Force of Negation is a card, but the rest of the shields are down.
Fortunately, on only, one mana, Matt doesn't have all that much he could do. If he had another copy of Leyline Binding, he could maybe play it. But other than that, not too much he could do. So
sure. Well, there's that fetch land. Matt finally drew one. Misty Rainforest will work in tandem with that Renin 6 to keep Matt on par with Michael's land drops. Michael bounces Matt's Leyline Binding with Teferi to free it up.
This turn, Michael just deciding like, hey, I want some value from my Renin 6. I don't have much else going on. I would love to, get a redraw from the Teferi, and there's not anything else on the battlefield for him to bounce. So, it seems fine to get back this run, especially when you have a land that you can cycle and put back into your hand.
This is the match where that comes into play. Cycling, drawing, buy it back, do it again. We're over to Matt Shu. Teferi for both players, Renin 6 for both players on 4. Teferi for Michael on 2. It's been back and forth. Do you feel like this is just going to keep going for the next few turns?
I mean, unfortunately for Matt, Michael has been able to get so much more value out of Renin 6 than he has. He's just only had this fetch line for a single turn. But, the tides are turning a little bit. He has answered Michael's Teferi, got a Teferi of his own. It's not over by any means, in fact, it's just begun. But Michael is, I would say in a sort of commanding position simply based on the number of cards that he has in hand. He has 6 cards where I think Matt only has 2 or 3 cards, and he's cycling, this cycling land and bringing it back with Renin 6, where Matt's turns are a little bit less impressive. He isn't really doing anything to sort of advance his game state other than, this past turn. So a really important turn for Matt. He needed to do something on this turn. And as we see in his hand right now, there is a copy of the One Ring. So as I said, it's far from over. Michael, while being up a lot of cards, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all super impactful. And now with this copy of the Teferi in play, it's going to be really easy for Matt to resolve the One Ring, right? Michael is going to both need an answer for Teferi as well as a counterspell to even begin to start, to start stopping Matt.
Yep, another EOT cycle, the Triumph from Michael. Over to Michael. Tick up. Grab the cycling land yet again.
But yeah, I mean, Michael has so many cards.
And a lot of them are lands. That's why we're seeing a ton of cycling out of him. Here's another Teferi. There are so many Teferis. This is a mirror match, isn't
it? Teferi, Renin 6, Teferi, Renin 6 every turn.
Sometimes there's a Leyline of Binding, but not always. And another land for Michael, and then a pass. Over to Matt.
Yeah, I mean, for me right now, this game is just really surprising. As I've already said a couple times, just Michael's turns have been way more impressive. Like, it's not like he's been doing particularly much, but even just, cycling these lands, getting them back with Renin 6, having fetch lands earlier on, I would expect Michael to be in like a really, really good spot here. But looking at his hand, it looks like, just a copy of Solitude, just an Otawara to cycle, a bunch of lands. And then over on Matt's side, while they have the exact same Planeswalkers in play, Matt has a copy of the One Ring. And yeah, Michael could bounce it with his Teferi, but each player has a Teferi in play. So Michael's most typical answers for this One Ring, being these counter spells in his deck, just the card counter spell as well as Force of Negation, they can't really answer the One Ring. So unless he finds his own copy of the One Ring or some Omnath, something to gain him some life, something to start doing soon, then Matt is just going to run away with the game because that is how powerful the One Ring is.
So Matt put the One Ring onto the stack, and Michael did the one thing he can do, and that's channel Otawara in response.
Yeah, that's a really tight play from Michael. There's not too much that you can do, especially under your opponent's Teferi, but channeling your lands, that is something that you can do.
Leyline Binding for Matt Shu. Which Planeswalker are we going to hide? It's going to be Renin 6. Slugfest. Here we go.
Really big pickup there from Michael, his own copy of the One Ring, basically exactly what he's looking for. It really breaks the parity of these boards where nothing has been happening, especially because, Michael has had a lot of answers for Matt's, rings and various threats, but I don't know if Matt has any, too many answers in his hand, Yeah, he was lucky enough to have this copy of the One Ring to follow up while he had these Planeswalkers in play, but that was about all he had going on.
So Michael resolves his One Ring, clicks it once to draw a card, down to 10 life. Worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, especially if Michael doesn't draw any copies of Omnath, the only being at 10 life is going to be extremely relevant. You can't. It's not like he's playing against a burn deck or something where he has to worry about every single last point of his life total. But you can't, take it for granted either. It's possible for Matt to play a copy of Omnath, get some creatures going. So you don't want to leave yourself just randomly dead, especially when you're in Michael's spot and most of your hand is lands.
Yeah, my concern would be that Matt resolves an Omnath and then triggers twice, and then the ring is going to finish off Michael. But there is some life gain in the deck, so let's see what happens. Matt starts with a fetch, bounces Michael's the One Ring. And then responds with his own. Clicks it up, takes a card. Looks at his rainbow worth of hand here and says another Leyline Binding.
Jeez, yeah, I mean, can't really wait on the Leyline Binding, obviously, because Teferi shuts it down. Has a pretty commanding board state here with this Renin 6 that has the ability to ultimate. And if you look at his graveyard, he has both a copy of Lightning Bolt and a copy of Preordain. So, there's some times where ultimating the Renin 6 would be much worse than getting the incremental value of just taking it up every turn. But here seems like a really good spot for this Renin 6 ultimate.
Yeah, that's like the ideal graveyard for Matt. Omnath for Michael.
I mean, Michael's hand is just land after land after land. He has this copy of the One Ring, which is going to come into play here, but I'm pretty sure he has like 4 lands. So that is really, really going to be tough to beat, what Matt's doing. Matt has, he hasn't been doing all that much earlier on the game, but the past 2 or 3 turns, the tide has just really been turning his way.
agree. I think Matt came very prepared for the mirror, given what I've seen out of him yesterday and today. Up to Fairy for Michael.
So wait, did that procedure go into the graveyard? Okay, yeah. Okay, there it is now. Yeah, I mean, this is huge. You know, if you're Michael, just finding a way to stop this Ren and 6 from ultimating, and what he decided was to, you know, use his own Ren and 6 to ping it down. So I think that's really important. Oh, or actually, I like this even more. Just pick up my Otawara, just bounce your Ren and 6.
Yeah, you can take a counter off of it, or you can put it back in his hand. And I think that was an excellent play from Michael. Michael's going to now play the One Ring that was bounced last turn. Click it. Back down to 10.
I mean,
go ahead.
Just look at this match. It is exactly, you know, what we've been saying earlier on in the weekend, what we've been saying in earlier matches. These 4-color Omnath decks are so swingy. You know, as I heard Reed saying a little bit earlier on, you know, I would say whoever is favorited, you know, whose turn is it? You know, it's like every single turn is so swingy. There's so much going on. There's so much mana at play here. So this game is, you know, I thought a couple of different times in this game that it was basically over for one of the players. And Michael really showing us that, hey, like, I've got some fight left in me, man. Like, I am not giving up.
Yeah, still the issue of the clock looms for Michael. Matt's okay with it, mostly. Matt clicks the ring. Now Matt's down to 11 thanks to the One Ring's burden trigger.
I mean, yeah, Matt.
Good.
I was going to say Matt's board state isn't too bad here, but he really needs to start answering, you know, answering Michael's ring and answering this Omnath. Otherwise, you know, the mana advantage that Michael has been amassing since early on in the game is just going to end the game.
So, funny enough, unless something else changes right now, Lethal's on the battlefield. Okay, we're going to take care of Omnath. Lethal will no longer be on the battlefield. It's lethal via the burden trigger and the attack in the Omnath trigger.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of tough, you know, if Matt has absolutely no interaction, then it, probably would lose a game like this. But
I think that's the name of the game, right? They're both just doing, like you said, Haymaker, swinging back and forth. They both have to do like multiple significant things on their turns to compete with the other person.
This Karn is huge here. Probably going to pick up either an extra copy of the One Ring just to make sure that, you know, Matt won't die to the one that he has in play, or just pick up the Sundering Titan. Looks like he opted to go for the Sundering Titan. You know, Sundering Titan not as massive in this specific spot as it has been, but it really puts the pressure on Michael to find something to do with his mana, right? Because especially with this Teferi in play, he can't just rely on a counter spell. He needs to first answer that Teferi and also have a counter spell. So huge turn for Matt, you know, deploying this Karn, finding this Sundering Titan. Not only does the Karn shut off the opposing One Ring that's in play, it found a huge threat that Michael is going to need to have basically two answers for.
Okay, Matt's done. Back to Michael. Solitude for Michael is going to take care of Solitude for Matt.
Honestly, if you're Matt, you're so happy to see your opponent tap 5 mana and only deploy a Solitude here. He's already planning on playing, you know, a really expensive card with his turn. He has Teferi in play. He's going to kill 5 lands. And as we take a quick look into Michael's hand, it's a ton of counter spells. This is a sort of matchup where having those counter spells is a huge liability. You know, you can't counter anything under Teferi. You can't counter any of these legendary cards cast with Delighted Halfling. And Matt Zhu, he brought an entire playset of both.
Sundering Titan. The 7-10 split. We're going to eat 5 lands.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Matt's list is so smart for this tournament. Just we've seen how popular these 4-color Omnath decks are. We've seen how popular, you know, just even these teamer decks are. Just having an option in your Karn board to find something that's impactful, you know, just past the One Ring, just a generic card that can impact the game so much. Brilliant. Oh, and I like this attack too. Matt saying, I have enough cards in my hand. I don't really want to take more damage from my One Ring. I just want to kill your stuff.
So that was quite the turn from Matt Shu. Matt Shu's looking to lock up this match and lock up his top 8. Michael leads with a Flooded Strand. If you're Matt, would you be greedy and Teferi bounce your own Sundering Titan to eat all of Michael's lands?
Is that even greedy? Like, I'm down.
Oh, okay. I mean, it is not. No, I guess it's not greedy. It's just good. Okay.
Yeah.
There he is.
I mean, that game just really showing the power of the build that he decided to bring, right? Expecting to play against a lot of these 4-color mirror matches, packing this Sundering Titan to sort of be like, hey, I'm going to go over the top. You know, I know we both have a lot of lands in play. I know we both have a bunch of planeswalkers. I'm going to kill all your lands. You can't really deal with it. And also, you know, just these Karns shutting off opposing copies of the One Ring from activating, finding your own copies of the One Ring, being additional planeswalkers. I think the list is really, really smart, looked really well positioned.
Yeah, and he was piloting really well too. I'd seen him, I think, 3 times under the camera now. I've been impressed with him each time. Good luck to him in that top 8. I'm sure he's locked in. Now, let's see, Anu, where we at the round? We have a backup match. Let's go down to the backup match right now and take a peek at this. Got some more magic for you. Okay. Everett Hanna on the right with Rakdos Evoke. Alexander Abrams with Team Rhinos.
It's like a little bit of a typo going on for coverage. Alexander actually ended up losing game 1. So, you know, as we could see him being on the play right here, you're wondering, you know, why would Rakdos Evoke, you know, lose game 1 and then choose to draw? That's not what happened. Rakdos Evoke actually won game 1. So Everett's up game 1, and here we're going to see Alexander going first.
Yeah. So we're looking at game 2. These players have their backs against the wall. A win is possibly top 8. A loss is definitely not. Alexander finishing his mulligans and starts us off. Is that Gemstone Caverns? Is that the Lord of the Rings Gemstone Caverns?
It might be. Wait, but so. Wait, So I'm confused. Did Alexander win game 1, or did he lose game 1 and choose to draw? Okay, so he lost game 1 and then chose to go second, right? Because you can only use the gemstone if you're not going first. So I think he actually opted to choose to go second here.
Pretty well, but I've seen stranger things. Everett with an evoked grief. We're going to get to see the hand. I see force of negation. What do you see? A couple of lands and...
Yeah, I mean, now it's just some lands, right? He had 2 copies of Feigned Death, pitched one to the grief, used the other one to bring the grief back, just completely stripping Alexander of all the cards in his hand and giving himself a 4/3. So really strong turn 1 here from Everett.
Yeah, that was Shardless Agent eaten by the grief's other ETB. And there's Ragavan. No longer a token. Upgraded to legend.
He's a real boy, it's true. So what we're looking for here, for Alexander, yeah, he's pretty far behind. This grief's in play, this Ragavan's in play, but he's probably realized that Everett missed his second land drop. So, his hand, not all that much going on, but if he's able to find a couple more of these Cascade spells, he could really run away with the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if he's got it in him. It's Heart of the Cards time. He's going to need to draw some good ones. There's Violent Outburst.
I love the sigh here from Alexander. Just draw. Oh, I'm so upset. Like, I don't have anything. Like, oh, I just, I missed again. Just how unlucky. Woe is me. And Everett just ate it up. He immediately he points at his Ragavan instantly. Oh yeah, like trigger my Ragavan. And Alexander says, "Hold on, what? You thought I actually didn't have anything? It was just a sigh. I was just sighing. I was just a little upset."
You fool. It was a ruse the entire time. All right. Couple of 4/4 tramplers at instant speed for Alexander out of nowhere. I don't think Ragavan's long for this world.
Yeah. I think if Alexander, I really hope that he ends up double blocking this Ragavan here, because if Everett just has one removal spell, he would not be able to stop, a Rhino from blocking pre-blocks, right? But if Alexander decides to block with a Rhino, and then Everett has removal spell, then he could kill the Rhino that the Ragavan was blocking. So really heads up double block here from Alexander, choosing, realizing, hey, if Everett has removal spell, he won't be able to use it before I can block anyway. So I'm going to need to use both my creatures to kill the Ragavan. So really, really good play.
Absolutely right. Yeah, Alexander showing some skill here. Now, if Everett were smart, he would be doing a bunch of sighing and trying to Hollywood Alexander right back.
I mean, yeah, the thing about Everett's turns, right? There's only so much that he could represent. He only has this one land in play, so he can't even cast that many spells. So, but it looks like Alexander's, sigh was just a sigh of relief. He ended up having 2 copies of Violent Outburst in his hand, but the second one, Everett did have the Thoughtseize to answer. So,
all right, who do you like for this game right now? Call it.
I mean, just as is, Everett is on a 2-turn clock from the Rhinos, but he does have a tournament in his hand. So if he draws a land, he could win. If he doesn't, he'll probably lose on the spot. And it's looking like all he drew was a lightning bolt, which is really, really bad for him, right? Because now he has to leave back this grief, block with a Rhino, still take a damage. I don't really love the spot that Everett's in. This was the most pivotal turn of the game for him. Okay, so the typo that we thought we had was never a typo to begin with. Alexander won game 1, which explains why Rakdos Evoke was going first the second game, and why this Gemstone Caverns was put into play. And also, it's looking like with this ice to tap down, I'm pretty sure Everett is actually only at 7 life. He is going to be taking lethal damage from these Rhinos. I mean, if you're Everett here, you know, you can't be too salty, but you have to feel a little bad after having such an exceptional turn one of grief you know, feign death my grief, take anything good from your hand, and then Alexander says, wait, I'm gonna draw not one violent outburst, but two, and then follow that up with an ice to tap down your creature and give myself lethal. So really well played there from Alexander. Really great draws. Just knowing exactly, you know, what sort of things his deck is looking for in that matchup, and capitalizing on that. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Alexander. Probably going to the top 8.
Yeah, I think that Alexander locks up top 8 with that win.
Okay, great. Do you want to talk about standings? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, where I'm trying.
Okay.
Yeah, I
we'll
think
just
Honorog's got us.